When I told people that I was going to Djibouti, most of them gave me the same look. Where is that? It's one of those countries that you don't hear about, but the truth is, Djibouti is one of the most strategically important places on Earth. And to be completely honest, I had no idea what to expect. And what I found was a country that feels like a stage where the world's biggest dramas, America versus China, migration, and global trade, all play out at once. Flying in, the first thing you notice is the heat and the goats. And driving out into the country on my overnight tour to Lake Abe and Lake Assal is the variety of landscapes. They're all so hot and harsh, but so different in their colours. I was amazed to see people living out there, looking after their livestock, and I was surprised by just how tough these people are. Djibouti city is different. In the free trade zone, you notice all the flags. And this is a place so central to trade, and it really is a rare place where both global superpowers coexist. Military presence is noticeable, but yet integrated. American, Chinese, French, Japanese, even Italian, all flying their flags over heavily guarded compounds that I wasn't able to film. For a country smaller than New Jersey, that's extraordinary. And it made me realize quickly, Djibouti isn't just surviving off its geography, it's monetizing it. And developing, with the help of China, building the railway between Djibouti and Ethiopia, and you could see how this place is set to be a heartbeat of African trade, if it isn't already. Ethiopia has no access to the sea, so Djibouti, once part of Ethiopia, is a lifeline for the country. Almost all imports go through Djibouti, and the roads are not great, and there are many trucks that have come off the road in transit. This area of infrastructure needs to be improved to supplement the railway. There was one traffic jam that was so long it must have delayed deliveries by days. To understand why Djibouti matters so much, you have to look at the map. Djibouti sits on the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, a narrow choke point between Africa and the Arabian Peninsula. And this strait connects the Red Sea to the Suez Canal. Around 10% of global trade passes through here. Oil, food, electronics, everything moves along this route. And there aren't many countries in this region that could consider stable or friendly to certain nations' trade. If this passage were ever blocked, the consequences would ripple across the globe. And that's why every major power wants a presence here. Let me repeat, this trade route is very, very important. If you think of the world as a military monopoly, then Djibouti would be a place you would have to buy. Djibouti is the only country in the world where US and Chinese military bases sit right next to each other. On one side, Camp Lemonnier, America's only permanent military base in Africa. From here, the US runs drone operations, counter-terrorism missions, and keeps an eye on the Red Sea and the Indian Ocean. On the other, China's first ever overseas military base, built alongside railways and ports, part of Beijing's broader Belt and Road strategy. Nowhere else do you see America and China literally staring each other down across a fence. And layered on top of that, you've got French troops, Japanese forces, and even Italians. Djibouti is a geopolitical rental property, and the tenants are the world's superpowers. But here's the other side of Djibouti, the human one. As I moved through the country, I saw migrants and refugees, especially from Ethiopia and Somalia. Many come here on their way north, trying to reach the Middle East or even Europe. And it's striking. On the same ground where superpowers play their great game, ordinary people are walking for days in the heat, carrying almost nothing, just trying to survive. And it ties into the bigger story. The refugee crisis that Europe wrestles with doesn't start at the Mediterranean. It starts here, with the instability and the poverty that force people out of places like Ethiopia and Eritrea. Djibouti is just one of those first stepping stones. Djibouti sits in the middle of a tumultuous region, but also one where the conditions are so hot that many people are unable to sustain life where they once did. Their problem is there is no real structure in place to help them. Some end up as house help, some in prostitution, and many use cat, a drug very popular in East Africa, called chat in Ethiopia. The gulf between those who are connected to the globalized economy and those who aren't is stark. Djibouti is full of contrasts. One day, I was standing in Lake Assal, the lowest point in Africa, where the sun sparkles against pure white salt flats, being overlooked by a Chinese processing plant. Another day, I'm at Lake Abe, surrounded by volcanic chimneys that look like something from another planet. But then there's also French companies that are searching for gas and oil. And then another day, I was on a beach that was as nice as anywhere in the world, although the sunburn I got when I was at Mescali had me peeling for days. So in this same tiny country, you've got American drones flying overhead, Chinese naval ships docking in ports, and then refugees moving quietly along the roadside. It's beautiful and fragile, powerful and vulnerable, all at once. Djibouti taught me something important. Global trade infrastructure isn't abstract, it's real, and it shapes the fate of entire nations. Countries that sit at the crossroads of the US-China rivalry, even the small ones, will play an oversized role in the century ahead. Djibouti may grow rich, but there are two Djiboutis. There are the people who live in some of the driest, harshest conditions imaginable, disconnected from the global economy, and then there are those linked to foreign trade, investment, and military power. That gap will only widen because the elites are too busy cutting deals with superpowers to deal with the climate pressures their own people face. And the geopolitics are shifting. China is building railways, ports, and hospitals. And the United States, meanwhile, is receding. Its influence fractured, especially under Trump. And I even had a friend who was affected by the cuts to US aid. And this puts the future in perspective. The next 100 years may well see China tighten its grip on Africa's resources and infrastructure. And that makes the prospect of a US-China conflict all the more real. And I haven't even mentioned AI. But here's the other side. The people. Djiboutians are warm and kind. I met amazing people, even if I stood out everywhere I went. Even the policeman who tried to fine me $200 for filming, he let me off luckily, but he had a mouthful of cat. Tourism exists, the landscapes are epic, like Lake Assal and Lake Abe, but it's still mostly a place for people with ties to the military, trade, or politics, and the heat is really intense. I would love to go back one day to see how it changes, and I really need to swim with whales. I just hope it retains its essence as a melting pot, because Djibouti really is a place like no other. Welcoming, yet suspicious. Unbearably hot, yet incredibly beautiful. A place lost in time, but with a huge future ahead. It's where East meets West, where the US and China stand face to face, where refugees move quietly in the shadows of great powers, and where a little-known country plays a role far bigger than anyone imagines. Please don't underestimate how important this trade route is. Just ask Yemen, Eritrea, and Somalia. Don't sleep on Djibouti. It isn't just a place with a funny name.